Hey everyone, welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Get ready to travel back in time to 1986, the year when Microsoft went public, the Oprah Winfrey Show was first syndicated, and when Wayne Gretzky was at the top of his game with the Edmonton Oilers, breaking his own NHL record for the most assists and the most points in a season. These are records, by the way, that he still holds to this day. Now, let's take a listen to what the House was talking about.
All questions? The member for Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Health. I wonder if the Minister could tell us what plans are in place to deal with the pending health care crisis of Thursday and Friday of this week.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the gentleman speaks of health care crisis, and I want to assure him that, in fact, there is no crisis, that, in fact, there has been a guarantee of emergency services. I can tell the honourable member, if he would like to know what our preparations have been, it has included contacts with the College of Physicians and Surgeons and certainly with the OHA in setting up a scheme by which the Ministry of Health can monitor very thoroughly the activity on those 2 days.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister's negotiations to date have failed. We face in this province a pending crisis in health care. I wonder if the Minister has considered, in conjunction with his Cabinet colleagues, the merit of appointing a mediator who might effectively deal with this situation, a situation which you and your colleagues have failed to do.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman says that we have failed, and it's true that there is no negotiated settlement. We have indicated quite thoroughly that we have made attempts at coming to a negotiated settlement, which in fact we have not been able to do. We will not and we cannot consider manners in which patients will be bartered away, or at least their rights be bartered away in exchange for the release of some patients. We have committed ourselves to ending extra paying in this jurisdiction. We think when there are benefits that are insured, that in fact that should be all that is required, and that no patient should be required to pay more. That being the case, it seems to me that we are always willing to explore ways in which we can make genuine gains in terms of negotiating or otherwise an end to the extra paying for insured medical services. But I can tell the honourable gentleman that there appears at this particular time no advantage in appointing a mediator, as he would say, and in fact, I have not received an indication to that way or a request in that manner from the OMA.
Mr. Speaker, my point was that you have failed in your negotiations. Why not let someone else try? Why not let someone else try to succeed where you have failed? Mr. Speaker,
Stop. They can't do it. Let somebody
Final
else.
supplementary?
Question which he
Mr. Speaker,
repeated.
I haven't put the question quite yet. Quite yet.
Now's the time.
Mr. Speaker, we have warned repeatedly of this government's failure to negotiate in good faith would lead to a health care crisis in the province. We warned you of that, and you are heading headlong into that kind of situation.
Order. Order.
Are you saying?
Order. Order. Are you going to place your supplementary?
Are you saying that you'll not be making further initiatives, that you'll be allowing this crisis to build, and that you'll be jeopardizing the health care system for people in this province? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Speaker, that is not what is said, and this particular minister has always maintained at the highest level his responsibility to ensure that the people of the province are receiving good quality medical care. That particular member knows full well that there is a guarantee of emergency services in this province during the slowdown on Thursday and Friday. He also knows that as I do, that there is a tremendous bond between physicians and patients with respect to the degree of care that is required. And in fact, I don't think that he's suggesting that is being jeopardized. And I think the other thing that this gentleman preambled his third or fourth question with, in this particular instance, that we had bargained in bad faith is absolutely not right. It is not correct. And in fact, we made a very genuine proposal, which in fact provided the key for us to deal with the critical issues. And in fact, we have received indications that the other side was favorably inclined towards that.
New question. Order. New question, the member for Dufferin-Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, a question for the Chairman of Management Board. Could the Minister help us by explaining to us why the budgets of the combined Cabinet and Premier's office are up 45%?
Minister?
You want me to? Yes, I would like very much to refer this question to the Premier.
Premier?
Responsibility, and I'm happy to relate it to you. As you know, there's been a decrease in the Premier's office of $0.7 million. You're aware of that. Economy and that. The Cabinet office has increased $2.8 million, and that is because the Social Policy, Resource, and Justice Secretariats, which your government had, and you recall that we've got rid of, have been transferred to that to the Cabinet office. Those originally had a budget of $3.5 million. We're now doing it for $1.2 million. So you'll see the economy has got to bear there. If you'd like me to go on with some of the initiatives, I'd be happy to explain it more. You probably are too embarrassed to ask any more questions about this.
Good. Order. 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 Supplementary.
I really had hoped, Mr. Speaker, to have a chat with the Chairman of Management Board today, but I see that's not possible.
It's open government.
Mr. Premier, now that you have disbanded the policy field, is it true that the policy-making procedures are all in your office and not left with what we would think the appropriate authorities, the civil service in each ministry?
Premier?
The answer is you're very clearly wrong. We have strong policy units in all the ministries, and just look at the incredible performance of the ministers of the Crown to know who makes the decision.
Here. Final supplementary.
Unbelievable is the appropriate word.
Mr. Premier, in the
Fantastic, there's no doubt about that.
in the Cabinet office, I understand.
Order. It's very difficult to hear, even though the member's sitting right close. Final supplementary.
Mr. Premier, as I understand it, the item in the Cabinet office budget called services includes consultants and contract work. Why has that budget for services gone up 700% in the Cabinet office?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I want you to, I invite you to put any questions you have in the order paper. It's all there to share with you on any occasion. You'll recall when you look at the numbers that there's actually been real savings from the previous administration when we had this proliferation of ministries and a variety of other things. I can tell you there have been some initiatives with respect to office automation. As you'll know, the bottom line there was the phones didn't work, but they are working now. There is a special advisor attached to the office who is looking at the disposition of Crown corporations. You know, it's not easy when you have a situation like Suncor that we've already wasted over $1 billion to try to cut our losses. Well, I'm just telling you, some of these things are tough to deal with. You're dealing with UTDC and a variety of other things. But I think if you examine that budget in detail, and I invite you to do so, because everything we do is open to scrutiny, then you'll see that we are spending money extremely wisely and well, and actually saving money over the money that you wasted over the years.
That's the way it appears to me. You're among the most nuclear.
New question. New question, the member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Health. Over the weekend, Dr. Earl Myers of the OMA announced this bizarre strategy of advising doctors to keep patients in hospital longer than previously was the case. I'd like to ask the Minister, is it his view that this suggestion by Dr. Myers is right, is professional, and if it is not his view, what does he intend to do about it under the Health Disciplines Act or any other regulations subject to the control of his ministry?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the main question and the supplementary, I find that I must respond to the question in this fashion. I find that the advice which is being given by Dr. Moran and Dr. Myers is being inappropriate for two reasons. One, I think that it intrudes upon the relationship between physician and their patient, which is something that the physicians of this province say they don't want seeing done. Second of all, I think that it fails to recognize the very difficult requirements that are placed on the people who operate our public hospitals, and in fact causes a considerable complication in an efficient and well-run operation. From that standpoint, I will tell the honourable members what has transpired to this point with respect to the college. They've indicated that they are willing to look at any events which are reported to them through the auspices of the Ontario Hospital Association or their, of course, affiliates in the hospitals. The hospitals themselves have protocols and bylaws, and they do have admission and discharge committees or bed utilization committees which review in detail what is going on inside those facilities. So those events taking place, of course, we will also, in the Ministry of Health, be monitoring quite thoroughly any reported information which comes to our attention with respect to that so-called clogging of the system.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the doctors or if the OMA is arguing that the hospital should be deliberately clogged, and the minister's only response is to say that this is simply inappropriate, I hope the minister understands that that's not the language of the Health Disciplines Act and that's not the language of the regulations. If he's suggesting that the college should have jurisdiction, perhaps he can tell us precisely which section of the regulations are going to be involved. Because if the OMA is going to be playing this kind of a game, you'd better have enough authority within the college to deal with the situation. And I wonder if the minister can tell us specifically which section of the regulations or which section of the Act is going to give the college the ability to deal with this kind of flagrant abuse of power within the healthcare system.
Mr. Speaker, I regret that the honourable gentleman didn't listen to my answer. My answer indicated quite specifically that the mandate in the primary sense will fall upon the publicly operated hospitals through the trustees, the boards of trustees, and otherwise. They have in place in those institutions protocols and bylaws, and they have in place as well committees which review the bed utilization and otherwise to deal with situations where there is inappropriate dealing. Mr. Speaker, I think that the honourable gentleman would want to acknowledge that the first area of concern would be at the hospital level. I repeat that I think the advice which was given by Drs. Moran and Myers was inappropriate. And I think that, in fact, we have in the publicly operated hospitals, the independent hospitals, a way of dealing.
Final supplementary.
The double standard going on here. If a spokesman for the nurses' aides said that they were going to deliberately create a clogging of our hospitals and a misuse of hospital beds, the Minister of Health would be on his feet that day saying specifically what the government of Ontario was going to deal with that kind of an abuse. When it comes to the doctors, what section of the Health Disciplines Act are you prepared to look at and deal with in order to deal with an intolerable abuse of power by a group of people within the healthcare system?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that honourable gentleman is being a little loose with what he sees as what this minister might do or might not do. First of all, the registered nursing assistants in this province wouldn't do that, and he knows that, and he's being hypothetically unruly, if I might say that. Mr. Speaker, I think that this gentleman should understand full well that the administration of the hospitals in this province, for a very good reason, has been kept at an independent level from the ministry. They run a very good and viable operation. Any problems in terms of administration or dealing with questions of patient concern inside those institutions are dealt with by the mechanisms that the institution has at hand. Included in that are the bed utilization committees, in this case, the medical advisory committees, in this case, and I can tell the honorable gentleman that the college is quite willing to receive information and deal with that information as it's received.
New question.
All those committees are headed by doctors, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask a question to the Premier, Mr. Speaker, with respect to South Africa again and Ontario's involvement with South Africa. I'd like to ask the Premier whether or not he's aware that while it is true that after a successful Labour campaign, many Ontario institutions such as jails and psychiatric hospitals have stopped the purchase of South African fruit and juice. I wonder if is he aware of the fact that the Ontario Hospital Association has not encouraged similar action by Ontario hospitals? And is he in particular aware that there is still widespread purchasing of South African products by Ontario hospitals, which are publicly funded institutions? And I'd like to ask him, what steps does he intend to take to make sure that this kind of practice is immediately stopped?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member will know, they are independent, even though they are government funded. I believe that we have taken action in all the agencies that we control directly. I hope there are no deviations from that policy, but that isn't the policy that's gone forward. Now, the point you raised is in a sense a follow-up to the one you raised last week, and I understand what you're saying. I don't know how widely that is done through the OHA, or one could argue universities through their cafeterias and others as well, and how far the policy goes. I have asked the Treasurer, with respect to your question of last week, to investigate where our jurisdiction is, how widespread the practice is, and we're trying to get some kind of a handle on it. But I was not specifically aware of the question that you just raised, and it's something that perhaps we can make suggestions to the OHA in that regard.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, these are publicly funded institutions. I would have thought that if the government of Ontario wanted to indicate what could be done with its money, it could indicate that pretty darn clearly if it wanted to do so. With respect to South African wine, I'd like to ask the Premier, I'm sure he's aware that just before the boycott, Mr. Speaker, was announced by the government last year, a very substantial order was placed by the Ontario government, which order has been honored. It is possible to buy wine, large signs, South Africa sections and so on, right throughout the system. I'd like to ask the Premier, would he consider the following suggestion? Either take the stuff off the shelves or hold an auction and donate all the money which would be raised by the sale and has been spent since you announced the boycott, make a contribution to the International Defense and Aid Fund for South Africa, which the federal government has contributed to, so that we can make a statement clearly on behalf of the people of this province that the money which is there is not going to go to the LCBO, but will go to people who need it in South Africa.
Order. Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, when we announced our policy some months ago, we announced at that point there would be no more orders placed. I believe that was the case. I think your facts are correct, that there were some outstanding orders, and we also said at the time we would sell off gradually the stocks that are there and not replace them. You could argue perhaps that we should not sell them off, that we should just let that inventory sit forever, or now your new suggestion of having a big sale, publicizing all of this and giving the money to another body to distribute in other terms. I think that this government has made donations and grants to other countries, and we have the right to do that. I'm frankly not sure that having a sale of South African wine and advertising the way you suggest and then contributing that money back to the committee would be the most appropriate way of registering our views on the situation.
Final supplementary.
Well, it compares. How does it compare with the proposal which you have in place right now, which is that you people have spent nearly $500,000 on South African products, gone to the LCBO since the time that you announced your so-called boycott, which hasn't in effect been a consumer boycott at all. So I'd like to ask the Premier, what steps are you taking to make sure that you don't simply continue to make money out of the sale of South African goods in stores that are owned and operated by a corporation which is responsible to the government of this province? If this suggestion isn't the right one, why don't you put up one of your own which will ensure that you don't profiteer from products from apartheid?
I'd ask the honourable member, who usually thinks these through, to think through exactly what he suggested. And I think he may come to a different conclusion. What he said is that the LCBO should eat that inventory, just sit there forever and nothing happened to it. And in other words, the taxpayers of the province of Ontario are punished. We are not buying anymore, and that's very clear, and we announced at the time. So now we're sitting with I don't know how much inventory, and it's being sold off, and those monies go into the LCBO profits that go for hospital beds, that go for education, that go for roads, of social services, and other things in this province. As you know, the LCBO contributes, what, $900 million? Or almost $1 billion to funding programs in this province, and that's where the money is used. Now, the money is sitting there. I'm sure, you may advocate that we throw away $500,000, or whatever it is, or half $1 billion. Well, if you own it already...
Order!
Look.
Order!
Just a minute.
Order!
Frankly,
Order!
A little...
Order! 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 New question? The member for Scarborough.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Education.
You're in trouble.
Not yet. During the examination of Bill 30 in committee last week, it's my understanding, Mr. Minister, that in an answer to my question, you stated that no community with a single public board secondary school would see that school closed nor transferred to the Roman Catholic School Board as a result of Bill 30. Is it still the government's intention to assure that no community will lose its single public board secondary school because of the extension of full funding to the separate school system?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said repeatedly throughout this lengthy process of discussing Bill 30, the government views very seriously and very positively the role of the high school and the single high school community. And I have made it clear to the committee and to the honourable member that it is the policy and the intention of this government that no community in the province of Ontario which today has a public high school will be without that public high school as a result of extension.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, future governments can change policy. Mr. Minister, you're quite aware that education ministers come and go in this province. And in order to...
Was that
yes, I have noticed that, and so do parties, and you better notice
Order.
that.
Was that your supplementary?
No, that wasn't my supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Well, place it.
And in order to protect these single school communities where the people for the future and remove their anxiety, will it be your intention then to put in legislation the phrase that no single school community will be closed because of separate school funding? And if not, why not?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, on the subject about reversal of policy, the honourable member knows whereof he speaks. Because, Mr. Speaker, some months ago, the honourable member speaking for his colleague said there should be an automatic exemption from religious education by non-Catholic students in the extended separate school system. Weeks later, the honourable gentleman reverses his field entirely. So I know, Mr. Speaker, from recent experience of the concern that some would have because the honourable members of the official opposition cannot be relied upon. Government policy, Mr. Speaker, with respect to single school communities is as clearly and as precisely as I have repeatedly stated it here in the House this afternoon and throughout many weeks and months of testimony.
New question. The member for Order. New question. The member for Windsor Riverside.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health. The Minister indicated in answer to an earlier question that he's not concerned. There is no crisis in the healthcare system this Thursday and Friday because the doctors have guaranteed emergency services. I'd like to ask the Minister, what are his plans for Cornwall, where the doctors have indicated there will be no emergency services, no services, period?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think that the honourable gentleman is not quite right on the actual facts of that situation. I think that there is an indication, as I read the same press report, that if there was a picket at the local hospital, doctors would or might refuse to cross it or something along those lines. I think that the honourable member would want to assure the people here that in fact that article was as I have said and not that they have said there would be an absolute withdrawal of those emergency services. Obviously, There are in that center as well at least a second area for provision of emergency services at the Hotel Dieu. I know that there are other places that are available for services, but I can assure the honourable gentleman that I am watching that situation quite closely and will, in fact, have my ministry's staff be looking at that provision of service in that area very closely indeed.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the Minister, is he telling us today that, that number one, in answer to a question earlier, is the responsibility for protecting the public lies with hospital committees, which are controlled by doctors? And is he in addition saying that he hasn't even bothered checking out the Cornwall situation, that all he's going by is press reports? What are your contingency plans to protect the consumers of this province?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is asking some questions about which we spoke earlier today. And in fact, he knows that we have contingency plans and that in fact we have made contacts with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, that we have in place a very thorough monitoring group of people inside the Ministry of Health. You know that we have a reporting mechanism through the OHA, and you know that I am very concerned that we in fact keep on top of all of those circumstances. You know all that stuff, and you yet stand in fact and suggest that in fact he has no information. Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable gentleman here and members here in this House and the people of the province that in fact we are watching very closely what is taking place. But I think what I wanted to do was stand first and correct the honourable gentleman about something which he was not being exactly precise about, and that was the situation in Cornwall.
New question. The member for Burlington South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Treasurer. In his budget of 2 weeks ago, he said he would be doubling the amount spent on skills training programs to $100 million. I am sending him over a copy of the estimates for his government, which is produced for the Ministry of Skills Development. Would the Treasurer please be so kind as to take a look at these very few figures involved and tell me which one represents a doubling of the amount spent for skills training programs for all Ontario citizens? Give that to the Treasurer who gets up.
Treasurer.
I'll look forward to examining the estimates carefully, as I've done in the past, and would simply tell the honourable member that the allocation for the Skills Development Ministry has been substantially increased, that the funding for Futures, that extremely successful program initiated by the Honourable Minister less than a year ago, is ongoing, and the funding for skills training in general, a series of programs with attractive acronyms like TIBI and TUG. I can't quite keep up with those, but they're all excellent programs, many of them established by our predecessors. We're not admitting that, we're asserting it. And the funding for those programs will be doubled. All of the funding is not new funding. The honourable member would be aware of that, having perused the figures as carefully as he has.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'd also like to send over to the Treasurer then his 85-86 estimates, which he can also examine and compare with the document I've just handed him. If the Treasurer compares these two, which I know he will notice that none of the expenditures on skills training have doubled as he promised in his budget, and that, in fact, the total spending on skills training programs is actually being reduced by $18 million, not increased as he just stated. Why has the Treasurer decided to reduce spending on skills training programs by $18 million instead of doubling the skills training programs as he indicated in his budget?
Well, I'd just like to point out to the honourable member that the ministry total is about $434 million, and out of that, skills training in general specifically requires $217,538. We believe that we can undertake substantial improvement in our programs at the present time with that level of funding, and I'm sure the honourable member, in having heard the responses from the minister, would appreciate that with his drive and initiative and the general acceptance of his new programs, that we will accomplish great things during this fiscal year.
New question, the member for Welland Thorold.
Yes, I have a question to the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations on gasoline prices. And may I remind him that even though he and the Premier have bemoaned the high prices several times during the last few months, that you have not intervened to do a single thing about them, and have only admitted actually in the last few weeks that you had the authority to do so. I want to ask you, Mr. Minister, can we now conclude that given that the price of gasoline has increased up to 8 cents more in the last few days, and given that you have stated, according to the press, that the oil company is going to be required to justify them, can we conclude that you are now going to bring in legislation to require that justification, or their prices will be rolled back?
Mr. Speaker, the member had a very long question, but it really amounted to one thing. Are we going to be bringing in legislation to roll back the prices? And the answer is no.
Going to do anything. Captain Esso.
Yeah.
Right out of the
Supplementary.
I assume that would be his answer, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if the Minister will recall that my letter dated April 24th, when you then denied my 3 requests for intervention to lower price, you said in that letter, and I quote, that gas was down to 38 cents per liter, and then went on to quote in another place, I am not yet satisfied that the consumer is paying a fair price for gasoline. End of your quote. Now, more than 1 month later, with prices more than 3 cents higher...
Order. The answer was no, and the supplementary has to flow out of the answer. I'm just waiting for the supplementary. I hope it's coming.
Coming right now, Mr. Speaker. I want to say to the Minister, don't you realize that the oil companies manipulate these prices upward as they like, because you've demonstrated that they have nothing to fear from you because you haven't the will or the courage to intervene. Can't you recognize the only way you can have results?
Order. Minister, don't you realize?
Mr. Speaker, I do realize, and just for the edification of the member, I should tell him that in the province of Nova Scotia, where they do have legislation, they have the highest priced gas almost in Canada.
New question, the member for Leeds.
Mr. Speaker, my question really flows from the previous questioner, and the minister really hasn't enlightened the House at all. Can he indicate what action, in light of these recent significant price increases, he's prepared to take to ensure that consumers in this province are not being gouged by the oil companies?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, members will realize that in the last few days the price of fuel has gone up, not the 8 cents. That 8 cents is based on a 33 cent a liter price, which is very, very rare. It was very difficult to find it. But there's no question that the price of fuel has gone up, and I'm very concerned about it. I'm contacting both Pat Carney, the Federal Minister of Energy, and Michelle Cote, the Federal Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, to see if in either of their jurisdictions they are taking any efforts to do something about it.
Supplementary.
Now, Mr. Speaker, this minister was recently conned in a very public manner by the big oil companies with their 37-cent scam, and I'm pleased he's not having another private tete-a-tete with his oil baron friends.
Supplementary.
By way of supplementary, will the minister today commit himself to a public inquiry to deal with what appears to be nothing less than an obscene rip-off of the province's consumers?
Minister.
What about your deregulation down there in Ottawa?
Mr. Speaker, I am not satisfied that it is, in fact, a public rip-off. I want to find out, and once we find out the facts, then we will make a move.
That's a good answer for you.
Order. The member for Ottawa Centre would like to ask a question. Member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask my question to the minister responsible for women's issues. Can the minister confirm that his business advisory group on equal pay for work of equal value has been given money and researchers for a summer of yet more studies on equal pay? And if so, What does this mean about the government's timetable for tabling legislation to cover working women in this province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the answer to the question is that some students have been provided to assist the Business Advisory Committee in some studies it wishes to do. That will have no impact on the timing of the bill.
Supplementary?
Glad to hear it, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if he'll tell us then when we'll get the bill.
Attorney General?
I think, Mr. Speaker, in the next session after the summer.
New question, the member for St. George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Financial Institutions. Minister, you will be doubtless aware of recent practices of life insurance companies in this province to refuse for life insurance coverage victims of AIDS and those who have test results suggesting that they have been exposed to the disease. What specific steps are you taking to protect the consumers of this province and ensure that they can secure life insurance?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for that question. I hope that members will understand that a life insurance company, when they grant insurance, have every right to determine the past medical history of a person, and if they've had, for example, heart problems, then they get rated. Now, at the present time, we have a situation where AIDS, to all intents and purposes, is a fatal disease. Notwithstanding that it does have some problems when you're inquiring about privacy, they have a right to find out if someone has AIDS. If they're going to insure them and find that this person has got a fatal disease, then they have a right to know that and to rate it accordingly. So we have been in touch with the insurance industry, and we're trying to work it out in such a way that it is not used indiscriminately or abused, but they certainly have a right to find that information out.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, I think that what is being abused is the practice of the life insurance companies to require tests to see whether a person has been exposed, not has the disease, but exposed. Right. And by way of information on that, Mr. Speaker, briefly, I would note that only 3 to 5% of those exposed to the disease ever come down with it, and those exposed go across the broad spectrum of this community. So I ask again, in face of particularly the public quotes of London Life, that they will turn down for coverage those testing positive as simply being exposed to this disease. What steps will you take to ensure consumer protection?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we have made sure that there isn't indiscriminate testing for AIDS, but only where there is some suspicion that the particular applicant has had that problem. It's ongoing. I've made my concerns, and exactly the concerns that you've expressed, I've made those known to the insurance companies, and we are working on it. I appreciate your question, but you have to understand it's a very serious problem.
New question, the member for Bellwoods.
Yes, I have a question for the Treasurer arising out of an article that appeared in the Globe and Mail earlier this month on the issue of pension surpluses. In the Globe and Mail, the article read as follows: the Ontario Pension Commission has no authority to rule on the question of who owns pension plan surpluses, and the superintendent of pensions suggests that employees and employers settle their disputes elsewhere. By that she meant in court. May I ask the Treasurer if that is the best his minister can do by way of pension policy on this issue, that suggests that disputes be settled in court? May I suggest that he take the issue back from his Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations and impose a rational policy on him?
Treasurer?
I'm sure the honourable member is aware that the minister has circulated draft legislation and is receiving comments from business, industry, labor unions, and maybe even political groups in this regard. But I also think I should say, in defense of the comment made by the chairman of the Pension Commission, that the regulations require the Commission to maintain 125%. Well, don't give up on it. Those are the regulations that apply there. They maintain 125% of the money to completely fulfill the agreed upon commitments for the pension. If there's more money in there than that, it is not for her to decide. other than as the regulations presently are. And as the honourable member knows, there is draft legislation out which is stimulating a review of the matter.
Supplementary.
Well, I'm encouraged that the review is taking place, because the new draft legislation doesn't clarify this issue at all. But
Doesn't touch it.
it doesn't
touch it.
It doesn't. That my supplementary has to do with the same article, which reads, surpluses have arisen for the most part because of inflationary gains and the reduction in pension fund liabilities as a result of large-scale layoffs. My question to the Treasurer, has anybody in the Pensions Commission brought to your attention the fact that INCO, for example, was able to take $100 million out of the pension fund as surpluses largely because of the large number of people that they managed to lay off over the years? And surely the government can't be serious in allowing this kind of theft to continue.
Treasurer.
Well, the honourable member knows that under the present regulations, statutes and regulations, the Pension Commission has to maintain 125% of the money that is by agreement required to make the payments necessary. I don't want to comment on the INCO's position specifically, but as I understand, that is totally paid by management, and that is the agreement that is worked out. That is the agreement that is worked out. Whatever you may think about the disposition, the law permits those withdrawals, and that is the way it presently is. The Honourable Minister is undertaking a review of it, has draft legislation, and the community at large is commenting.
The Minister of Agriculture and Food has a response to a question previously asked by the member for Temiskaming.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to respond to a question from the member for Temiskaming. In my absence, he asked about the importation of tobacco from South Africa and other countries by Rothmans of Pall Mall. Bob Allen, Vice President of Finance and Public Relations for Rothmans, stated to ministry staff that his company does not import South Africa tobacco. For 1984, Statistics Canada reported 3 million pounds of imports, with only 12,000 pounds originating from South Africa. Under the Statistics Act, the federal government will not release any information regarding individuals who import, the destination of imports, or the volume. It is classified as confidential information and is not subject to release. I draw your attention to the recent agreement for the marketing of Ontario tobacco. All 4 domestic manufacturers signed the agreement that the companies will not import tobacco beyond the small amount currently required for blending purposes, except in the case of a tobacco crop loss.
Supplementary.
In supplementary last week to the Premier, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to bring that again to the Minister's attention. Do we have any regulations in this province whereby we do import tobacco that is grown under conditions that are not allowed to be grown in Ontario?
Minister?
Well, of course, we have no jurisdiction over importation of any commodity from other countries. But the federal government does keep a watchful eye on the various chemicals that are used in other countries. And they assure us that if chemicals are used which are banned or not registered in this province, that they do take steps to prevent that commodity from moving into Ontario or any parts of Canada.
New question, the member for Carleton, Grenville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question of the Solicitor General. Mr. Minister, several weeks ago, police in Ottawa arrested a woman for prostitution who admitted that she was carrying the AIDS antibodies. It was also known that she was a drug addict and depended upon prostitution to support this habit. Police have now lost track of this woman. Can you answer me, Mr. Solicitor General, why the Ottawa Police released her from custody on May 12th?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I cannot give an answer to that. I'll take it under advisement. It would be in contact with the Chief of the Ottawa Police Department to try and determine an answer, and shall do so for the Minister immediately.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed in some way that the Ministry is not aware of the facts surrounding this particular case because of the very contagious effects that this particular virus can have. Would the minister also answer to us what steps he's going to take to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future with other police forces?
Minister?
might have a reminder back to the honourable member that our connection with municipal police forces is in an advisory capacity to the Ontario Police Commission. We do not have direct control over the operation of each municipal force, but that the appropriate guidelines for the force and the determination of trying to retain such people rests with the Board of Commissioners of Police for the area, as well as the chief and his men.
New question, the member for Beaches Woodbine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also have a question for the Solicitor General. Mr. Minister, I have received reports that the OPP are sometimes unable to deal adequately with complaints of cruelty to farm animals due to lack of resources and lack of facilities for housing and feeding abused animals. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister, will you tell the House why you have been steadfastly refusing to meet with officials of the Ontario Humane Society in the past year in view of the fact that the Price Waterhouse study commissioned by your ministry in 1982 chose the Society as the agency most suitable to handle the province's responsibility for enforcing the criminal code?
Thank you very much to the member for the question. We have not refused to meet with them. We've met with them on a good number of occasions the past year. I also have met with them, and I've also, in response to a question earlier, made sure that I wrote personally to the Humane Society and asking them to come back with us to negotiate and to seek a redress to what they consider their funding problem. It would be of interest to this House and to the member to know that on Friday, after all these months of negotiation, on Friday we had a request for a grant of money to the Society, and we've asked them to come in to discuss it, and it's being evaluated by staff at the moment.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, through you to the Minister, there seems to be some disagreement on the information that I have. I understand that only the deputy has met with them and that they have submitted numerous requests, including a formal application for a grant, although this is a technicality, and that you are hiding behind technical excuses rather than sitting down with them and working out exactly what they need to carry out this responsibility.
Supplementary.
And what kind of accountability and training requirements you would consider necessary. They're willing to meet those.
Minister.
It's great information here. They're willing to meet because we've made that request on a number of occasions, and the specific request has been to give us an indication from their own society as to what will they do to meet the requirements of the Price Waterhouse study should further funding be available. Their answer appears to be, give us some money and we'll show you what we can do. In the way of a responsible type of government, we have asked for an indication of what steps they will take first, and then the money will be provided.
New question, the member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Mr. Minister, Thursday last I approached you and your colleague, the Minister of Natural Resources, to see what assistance the provincial government may be able to provide to those property owners in my riding of Brantford whose properties are threatened by mudslides. I wonder if the Minister has consulted with his staff and whether he is able to tell the House now what assistance will be available to these families.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member that my field office people are monitoring the serious event and that I'm aware of the conditions. And I haven't had a full report yet, but as soon as a detailed report is on my desk, I will respond accordingly.
Supplementary.
I thank the Minister for that, but I wonder if I could ask the Minister specifically if the program that exists within the Ministry of Natural Resources, which allows for the acquisition of threatened properties on riverbanks that are eroded in this way, will in fact, whether funding under this program will be made available to the homeowners who will not be able to return to their homes in the east end of Brantford.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member that I will be in touch with the Minister to my right, and if land needs to be bought or purchased or expropriated, we will do so, but I'll leave this up to the Minister of Natural Resources.
New question, the member for Hamilton East.
I have a question for the Minister of Labour. Last July, the Minister told us that he hoped to have some increases in the minimum wage ready for the fall. That's not happened. It's a year and a half since the last increase in the minimum wage, and I wonder if the minister can tell us what has happened, that we haven't seen an increase, and what his plans are.
Minister?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the matter of a minimum wage increase is under active review, and we have had a discussion both with people in the trade union movement and with the businesses as to what might be appropriate levels for an increase in the minimum wage, and also what would be the most appropriate time, most useful time to increase the minimum wage, so that there is not a disruption of some operations which require some notification of minimum wage increases. I expect to have something to say on this matter in the not-too-distant future.
Supplementary?
The minister will also recall that he made sure to point out in his statement last July that one of the reasons, or one of the problems with our low minimum wage, was because the Tories hadn't acted for almost 3 years before the last increase. Can the minister tell me what is different between him and the Tories with the kind of a delay we have in the minimum wage increase, and what he's doing about indexing or allowing for some form of automatic increases in the minimum wage?
Minister?
Well, we've taken a look in a general sense, Mr. Speaker, at the issue of indexation. I'm not sure it's necessarily appropriate. While indexation, one could make arguments for indexation, one also really should keep in mind the relative competitive positions, not only of this province, but other provinces, neighboring provinces, and indeed other jurisdictions in the United States. I have had an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to discuss these matters with my colleague, the Minister of Labour in the province of Quebec, and as I said, we'll be bringing forward in due course appropriate recommendations.
New question, the member for Durham, York.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Agriculture. Saskatchewan has doubled its agricultural budget this year and now has per capita funding well over double that to the Ontario farmers. How are Ontario producers going to compete with their friends in Saskatchewan?
Minister?
Well, Ontario producers have always been able to compete very successfully with the producers in the other provinces, but I have to remind the member that since we formed the government, we have increased the agricultural budget by 39%. Now that's, I suppose in a way that's a sad commentary on the previous administration, who even failed to recognize that the agricultural industry was an important industry in this province.
That's right.
Supplementary?
Well, your accomplishments are pale when compared to your competition. You promised innovative new ideas, and you promised the doubling of the budget. Where are the ideas and where are the money?
Well, I believe...
Order. Minister?
I believe when a promise was made to double the budget, I believe that the time period was doubling of the budget over the next 3 years. We have increased it within 11 months, 39%. We have introduced a number of programs which farmers tell us have meant, in many cases, the difference between their survival and their exit from the farm. And I'm speaking of OFFER, I'm speaking of an enriched BFAP program that I'll be announcing details on later, an enriched farm operating credit assistance program, which I'll be announcing later, the introduction of a crop and expansion program. I mean, we have done numerous things since we formed the government, all of which is going to be very helpful to our farmers.
New question. New question, the member for Etobicoke.
I have a question for the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. The minister, shortly after his appointment, was quoted as saying that it was not his high priority to bring in the new Condominium Act. I'm wondering if the minister can tell us when the condominium owners across the province can expect the new act.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker,
Consumer and Commercial Relations.
Mr. Speaker, the member will know that I addressed last Friday night the Condominium Institute and responded to that. The rewrite of that act is going to be a major one, and although I didn't say it wasn't a high priority, I said that it would be difficult for me to get it into the House with some urgency because of the other high priority items. It's something that we are working on in my ministry, and as soon as we can get the drafting done and introduced, we will. I can't give them a time because of the crowded legislative agenda.
Supplementary?
My supplementary, the minister's been in his portfolio now for 11 months. The previous minister had been promising a new Condominium Act for at least 2 years. Does the minister not understand that there are major problems in the condominium field and that the Act should be addressed and sent out to public hearings as soon as possible? And when can we expect to have the Act before us?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the member's concern, and I agree that it needs some time, but I'll tell you, in the hierarchy of things, we just can't get it into the legislative agenda. We will bring it in as soon as we can.
You? Order. 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 New question, the member for Carleton Grenville.
This is a question to the Solicitor General, Mr. Speaker. The minister will remember that last January, 2 Brinks guards were gunned down during a robbery in Ottawa. Now that you have had the opportunity of several months to reflect on this matter, what is the minister's position with regard to the holstering of security guards' guns and their ability to draw them while picking up or delivering cash?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the position of our ministry has not changed from that stated before. We have met with representatives of the firm in question, and we are still continuing to review it, but there is no indication from any of our staff, myself included, that there is a need to relinquish and provide more freedom of handling of handguns in this province than what exists today.
New question, the member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Transportation and Communications concerning the provision of GO Rail Transit east to Oshawa. The minister knows that whole project has been on hold now for the better part of a year. When are we going to see an announcement which will allow the construction of that project to continue?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the member is well aware that the construction east from Pickering is well underway. A number of contracts have just recently been let. Bridges have just recently been opened. And we can't possibly get to Oshawa until we get to Whitby.
Supplementary?
I'd give you a map, but I don't think it would help. Mr. Speaker, we are all embarrassed at watching this major construction project lie idle for the better part of a year. When will we see some construction activity on that particular project?
Minister?
Speaker, I don't know how the gentleman goes back and forth to his home, but I would like to give him a map and perhaps a pass on the GO train. Construction is underway, and we are intending to open the line to Whitby in 1988 as on schedule.
New question, the member for Burlington South.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Colleges and Universities. I wrote to him some months ago about a concern with the Ontario Student Assistance Program and a practice whereby students were being denied filing of their application with banks unless they had been depositors for a period of up to 6 months. When I wrote the minister, he replied that he understood this practice was to put pressure on the federal government to revise its interest structure and to provide a transaction fee on loans negotiated, is what the minister said. My question, Mr. Speaker, is what has the minister done in his discussions with the federal government to overcome this abusive approach to filing student loans?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the short answer to that question is we have not done anything in particular that's going to alleviate the problem in the short term. We are, however, undergoing discussions with the Secretary of State collectively, with my colleagues from other provinces, to try and deal with a number of these issues and make certain changes to the funding of students, particularly student loans to students, and we hope to carry on that exercise and perhaps have some results within 6 or 8 months.
Supplementary?
My supplementary, Mr. Chairman, it's just not good enough if you've known about the practice and you've done nothing about it. I would like to ask the minister if he has responsibility for the students of the province of Ontario. When is he going to resolve this unfair practice, or is he going to sit by and do nothing about it?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the problem that my friend raises is not really the most serious problem that students have with respect to funding their post-secondary education. Not only that, it's a problem that's created by another level of government. I would inform the member, Mr. Speaker, through you, that we are undergoing a
fairly comprehensive review of the Ontario Student Assistance Program in view of the fact that debt loads to students have increased substantially over the past number of years. And we consider this rather minor issue within that context. But I'm not prepared to raise with the Secretary of State in Ottawa and make a major issue out of a small problem that could be dealt with in a context working with my provincial counterparts.
New question, the member for Sudbury East.
I have a question of the Premier.
Good.
Since Mr. McDonald had a meeting with you a number of months ago, only indicated at that meeting that there was a vacancy rate in northwestern Ontario for prisons, and since he forgot to tell you that, in fact, you were going to have to expand a number of prisons in the south, and since he continued to give you the idea that we should bring the prisoners from the north to the south, are you prepared to change that Tory thinking and, in fact, create or reopen the prison in Burwash, create 225 jobs, plus an extra 225 with spin-off, and create a total of 500 jobs and reduce the unemployment rate and the welfare rate?
Mr. Speaker, I know of my honourable colleague's intense interest in this matter, and perhaps he wants to be assured of a secure place after he leaves this legislature. I'm not sure. But let me say, Mr. Speaker, wherever the accommodation problems are in this province, we will find you personally a jail in which to reside. I want my honourable friend to know that. But let me say, you put the arguments eloquently and passionately and so often that no one could ever not know what you were talking about. I can tell you that the Minister of Government Services and Chairman of Management Board and a lot of others have been looking very seriously at that Burwash situation, trying to find some use for it. I don't have the answers today. As you know, there was a very strange history on that particular place. It was opened up and then closed and has been, in a sense, gutted. It's not as if one could move in immediately with a facility for incarceration of any type. But I continue, and I want to thank the honourable member for his devotion to this cause, for his understanding, and for his reminding us of the importance of this issue, and we are pursuing it, but I don't have an answer for him today.
Time for oral questions has expired.